OK, can we talk a little about tax? Now, you're in the Department for Business. You were there. One of your fellow ministers when you were there was Stephen Green, former chief executive of HSBC. What did you know about HSBC and tax evasion at the time?
I didn't know anything at all. I knew that there was a that tax avoidance has been a long-standing issue.
Avoidance or evasion? Avoidance is legal, evasion is illegal.
Quite. And tax evasion is both illegal and investigated. And tax avoidance has been a long-standing problem, which we're tackling, and in fact have raised more in terms of revenue from closing tax loopholes and tax avoidance in this last Parliament than in most previous Parliaments, and we're going to do more in the next Parliament. So I know about the policy area. On this specifics, I didn't have any of the details.
And so, I mean, there was quite a lot, in fact, in the public domain, wasn't there, about HSBC? I mean, Dave Hartnett, who was running HMRC back in 2011, told a Commons committee, I think the whole nation probably knows, that our department has a disk from the Geneva branch of a major UK bank with 6,000 names, all ripe for investigation. Did you know that?
I didn't. I don't follow the Dave Hartnett Select Committee.
Did you know?
But I'll tell you what.
I got from the FT here that it was HSBC that was a relevant bank. This is 2010, actually, July 2010.
What I do know is that it is not appropriate for individual ministers, for any ministers, to know about the individual details. And in fact, in that Select Committee performance, because I've had a look back on it when I knew I was carrying on this programme, it then went on to outline the investigation that was ongoing. And you don't want ministers getting into the details of individual investigations by HMRC. Right. It's a really important part of our democracy. It's a very important
principle that you don't find out about individual taxpayers' affairs, isn't it? That's an important principle.
And individual companies' tax affairs.
Right, but individual companies' potential law-breaking activities was not HSBC's tax affairs that were at stake here. It was HSBC's behaviour with clients that was potentially law-breaking. It would surely have been useful for government to know that, wouldn't it?
Not for ministers.
No?
No, in the same way the Home Secretary doesn't know the individual details of individual...
For the financial regulator to know, not useful for the financial regulator to know that one of the big institutions he's regulating is potentially law-breaking.
Well, your question was about ministers, not about the regulators. Well, and there are special rules about the investigators within HMRC, who of course do know these things. And as you saw from that Select Committee evidence, HMRC then went on to reassure the committee that they were investigating. And indeed, those investigations led to a prosecution. So, so this was happening in the appropriate way. But there is a bigger picture question.
Well, no, let's just stick on the detailed picture here. The detailed picture is, are you satisfied with HMRC that has had all the information that Panorama has revealed this weekend? HMRC has sat on that, evidently, because no one knew about it. The financial regulator didn't know. Ministers didn't know. Are you satisfied, given the evidence of potential law-breaking by a major British company, that that was not in any way shared?
I'm absolutely satisfied.
And if it was murder, would you...
Let me answer the question. I'm absolutely satisfied that individual ministers didn't know about the activities of individual companies.
And should they have known? Should someone have said, look, we've got evidence here...
I don't want ministers knowing about the individual affairs of an individual company. Look at the last 10 days and the attacks on Labour by some politicians. I don't want those politicians to know about the individual affairs and investigations into individual companies.
HMRC was quite right to just sit on it and keep it quiet.
I think that you're wrong to say they sat on it, because what they went on to say in that the committee investigation you've just read out was to detail the investigation that they were doing.
Are you surprised just one prosecution out of 1,100 cases?
Well, so you've just, as you said, 1,100 cases. Now,
one prosecution. Have you been surprised? You've had it for 5 years, for goodness sake. It's not like you had it last Thursday. I mean, one prosecution out of 1,100 cases. Does that surprise you?
Well, sometimes...
Does that anger you?
Yeah, well, that's a better question, because, I don't know...
The public are very cross about it, and they just are bewildered as to how a government could sit on a file for 5 years, one prosecution out of 1,100 cases. They just don't understand it, and none of us can quite get a clear answer, because everybody says we didn't know anything about it.
I'd love to give you a clear answer if you finally asked me the question. The bigger picture issue is should this be tackled? And the answer to that is very clearly yes. Not only in terms of making sure we raise the right amount of revenue and close down tax loopholes, but also in terms of prosecutions where they're appropriate. I, for instance, have been one of the leading people saying that those at the helm of large banks that are systemically important should be liable for criminal prosecutions if they behave negligently. Because people need to know that when people in positions of authority like that make a big mistake, then they are held to account. And so I entirely understand the anger. Sometimes these prosecutions are very complicated. I don't know the details of it. It's best that I don't. But boy, do the people who make these decisions need to be held to account.
Matthew Hancock, thanks very much.